raising awareness of a worthy cause.
Your attention, please. Thank you for choosing Earth as your planetary vehicle. We hope you enjoy the many wonderful features of this planet as you hurtle through the cosmos. Please note, however, that in the event of continued inaction in the face of global warming, your seat cushion can be used as a flotation device. Also, please take a moment to locate this planet's emergency exits. As you can see, there aren't any. Earth to humanity. Can you hear? Sending out a message. Loud and clear. Can you hear?
Television is a massive mass hypnotist to the global mind. And what happens is it is implanting a belief in reality by the minute, and then once we take on that belief implanted, when information enters the eyes, we edit it on the basis of that belief. And so what the global population is subjected to, suffering from, is actually literally mass hypnosis. And when we talk about people who kind of start to see things and see the manipulation they couldn't see before, what do we say about them? What do they say about themselves? They say, I woke up. Exactly what they've done. When people start to go, hey, I can see it now, it's like someone has gone along, like the hypnotist, and clicked their fingers, and it's like, oh, I can see it now. Mass hypnosis. And that is the greatest hypnotist on the planet, and that's the basis of why it was created.
In this wasteland, I am the one who runs from both the living and the dead. A man reduced to a single instinct. Survive.
It is by my hand! You will rise from the ashes of this world! Where is she taking them? I want them back! They're my property!
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Want to get through this?
Go!
As the world fell, each of us in our own way was broken. It was hard to know who was more crazy. Me
the Skull and Bones secret society was originally called the Brotherhood of Death. The Skull and Bones headquarters is on the campus of Yale University. Yale is home to several other lesser secret societies, including the Scroll and Key. Alexandra Robbins is an American journalist who has written a book about the Skull and Bones called Secrets of the Tomb. In her book, she traces the origins of this cult, which was funded from profits of the Russell Company in the early 1800s. The Russell Trading Company was nothing more than an opium trading empire, which, still to this day, is the corporate arm of the Skull and Bones secret society. William Huntington Russell had travelled in Germany during his student years and was befriended by a disciple of Adam Weishaupt's Bavarian Illuminati. Upon returning to the USA in the early 1800s, Russell used some of his family's opium wealth to fund the building of the tomb at Yale University. Russell initiated several of his fellow classmates, including Alphonso Taft, who would go on to become the Secretary of War and ambassador to Russia. Alphonso Taft's son became President of the United States, and so a time-honored tradition of hereditary membership of the Skull and Bones Brotherhood of Death was begun. We see this tradition continued to this day, with senior Bonesmen encouraging young initiates to marry into each other's families, their sons and daughters following in their parents' footsteps and becoming disciples of this most unholy of orders. In the Hollywood movie Brotherhood of the Bell, we see an initiation ceremony, which is a common occurrence on the campuses of America's elite Ivy League secret societies.
Realize that these initiation rituals are actually set up to affect the participants in a certain way that allows these other dimensional entities, which folklore have talked about for thousands of years all over the bloody planet, this theme of possession by demons. These are entities that exist just outside the frequency range of the five senses. Because, again, because of the suppression of basic knowledge of who we are and the nature of life, we become child's play to manipulate. For instance, people look through their eyes and they think they're seeing everything in the space they're looking at. No, they're seeing a fraction of it. They're seeing a tiny frequency range that the five senses can access. Just like if you tune to radio 1, you get radio 1. You don't get radio 2, you get radio 1. Now, just outside the frequency range of the five senses are entities that are manipulating this five sense reality through these particular bloodlines. And one of the key places where this possession takes place is during these satanic rituals and gatherings, when the vibrational environment is created by the ritual that allows this takeover of the mental and emotional processes of these people to take place. And this is why you'll meet so many people who've known famous politicians and staff when they started in politics or before they came into politics. And they'll say, mate, that guy ain't the bloke that I knew. Well, mentally and emotionally, that's literally true in a lot of cases because of this possession that takes place. And people think it's kind of far-fetched and it's maddening. That may happen in Babylon, but not now. Well, please. That very thought is the greatest defense mechanism this grotesque conspiracy has to protect it.
So Eyes Wide Shut is really an expose of these super wealthy people in stately homes. They are, if you like, the American Illuminati, the American aristocracy. And in the film you see a form of black mass. And the black mass is traditionally a satanic version of the Catholic mass. And in the film you see characters dressed as cardinals and a character dressed rather like a pope from the medieval era. And it's a ritual of sex magic witnessed by these super wealthy individuals who disguise themselves using masks which are reminiscent of the Venetian masked balls of the medieval era. And sex magic is a very specialized form of magic. It's really bringing together an atmosphere of psychic tension within the temple and combining this with sexual tension and the energy that is given out at the point of orgasm by the people that are taking part. This sexual energy is offered up to a spirit, and of course in the case of Satanism and various versions of black magic rites, this sexual energy at the point of orgasm is given as a gift to breathe life, as it were, into a demon spirit which is invoked. And at the beginning of the ritual in the film Eyes Wide Shut, we see each of the participants kissing each other. And this is a very common thing that you find in rituals. The high priest or the high priestess would often welcome each initiate to the ritual with a kiss. Now, in black magic, such as the black magic that was practiced by the Knights Templar, and we know for sure that the Knights Templar were involved in very, very dark occultic goings-on, because when the Knights Templar were interrogated, many of them confessed, and one of the confessions was that they used to give each other a sacrilegious kiss. And the high priest of the Knights Templar order used to bare his buttocks to each of the initiates as they entered the temple, and they used to have to kiss the anus of the high priest.
Hawati en tawi, tem jefa kau. Tapen em awef, mu ef, ta ef, sem ef, menemenet ef nebet, hayet nebet, enenet nebet, jedefuet ef, awet ef, haset, semawu em sanut.
One of the most influential secret societies spawned by the Bavarian Illuminati is the Order of the Golden Dawn. It was founded in 1887 by a Freemason, William Wynne Westcott, who claimed to have deciphered a coded alchemical script containing initiation rituals of a secret German occult order called Die Golden Damerung. Westcott already had plenty of experience conducting occult rituals. In 1865, he had helped establish a Masonic order called the Societas Rosicruciana, inspired by the Jewish magic of the Hebrew Kabbalah. These rituals are still enacted at study group meetings at the United Grand Lodge in London. For many years, the Golden Dawn held its meetings at the London headquarters of the Mark Masons. The Golden Dawn was plagued with scandal
as rival high-ranking Masons wrestled for control of this influential Victorian secret society. In 1891, Westcott lost control of the Golden Dawn to another high-ranking Freemason magician called MacGregor Mathers. Together with the poet W.B. Yeats, they devised new magical rituals and initiated the senior members of Britain's aristocracy. In 1903, control of the Golden Dawn was yet again seized by another Freemason called A.E. Waite. The rituals of the Golden Dawn were similar to ancient witchcraft. At the Old Bailey in 1901, two Golden Dawn associates, Mr. and Mrs. Horos, were tried for rape. They had used the Golden Dawn initiation ceremony to beguile their teenage victims. The Golden Dawn was nothing more than Freemasonry with added semi-satanic and sexual mysteries. The Golden Dawn still survives to this day. In 1987, a conference was held in London to commemorate the centenary of the Golden Dawn's conception. The conference was organised by the Hermetic Research Trust, whose trustees include the Marquis of Northampton, who is a prominent Royal Arch Freemason. The Golden Dawn's most notorious member was a self-confessed Satanist, Aleister Crowley, who styled himself as the Beast. Crowley was one of the pantheon of cult figures portrayed on the cover of the Beatles record Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Crowley had already been trying to contact the devil in 1898 when he first made contact with the Order of the Golden Dawn. By 1900, Crowley was mingling with the elite of British society, sharing his knowledge of devil worship with leading Masonic politicians, aristocrats, and royalty. Crowley was a full-time occultist and had no day job in which he had to hide his fascination with Freemasonry and Satanism. In his book, Confessions, Crowley claims he was initiated into Freemasonry at the Anglo-Saxon Lodge in Paris. He also recounts how he became master of one of London's oldest and most respected lodges, the Studholme Lodge, which is now rumoured to have Tony Blair as one of its members. Crowley shared Albert Pike's enthusiasm for the devil. In his book entitled Magic, Crowley writes, "The devil is this serpent, Satan. He is life and love. He is light, and his zodiacal image is Capricornus, the leaping goat, the Godhead." In 1912, Crowley became the British leader of the Ordo Templi Orientis, the OTO, which was a direct descendant to the original Bavarian Illuminati. The OTO was a hardcore satanic secret society, and Crowley devised the initiation ritual around the 33rd degree ceremony of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Crowley claimed the formation of the OTO was reconstituting Freemasonry back to its German Illuminati roots. Crowley wanted nothing less than to dance with the devil. He was impatient with the politeness of Masonic ritual. He described basic Freemasonry in the lower ranks as a sinister association for political intrigues and pirates. Winston Churchill was also a 33rd degree Freemason, initiated into the Studholme Lodge at the headquarters of the 33rd degree in May 1901. Winston Churchill was also a member of the Order of Druids, who often meet at Stonehenge during the spring equinox, whilst members of the British public are forcibly restrained from this ancient megalithic site by thousands of police officers. The ancient Druid rituals at Stonehenge can be considered harmless when compared to the murderous, satanically inspired ceremonies of Freemasonry. Most Freemasons do not progress beyond the first 3 degrees or exams of initiation. These are often called the blue degrees. In fact, many Masons do not even realize that beyond the 3rd degree of Master Mason, that there are higher degrees. The higher degrees of Freemasonry are almost exclusively populated by men of aristocratic lineage, or ex-officers of the armed forces. In all, at any one time, there are no more than a few dozen men who reach the 33rd degree. As they pass each ritual test, the ceremonies become more bizarre and include symbols which can be found in ancient Egypt, with initiates being given pompous titles such as sovereign, prince, or knight. Both have sworn on pain of death not to reveal the secrets of their Masonic orders. Both have been initiated into the age-old Illuminati global network, which is obsessed with death and murder.
And when you start to research the subliminals in advertising and television, what staggers you is not what they do and what's there, but the scale of it. I mean, it's like our consciousness is being hit by an explosion of this stuff. Because you see, this is another interesting point. Experiments have shown that about 1.5 seconds before the conscious mind decides to take action, move its arms or whatever, speak, 1.5 seconds before it consciously decides to do that, the electrical signals have begun in the brain to do it. For me, the conscious level is the experiencer and observer of reality, but the subconscious is the creator of it, the generator of it. And this is why the Illuminati want the subconscious mind through subliminals. What does subliminal mean? It means below threshold. It's below the threshold the conscious mind picks up, but the subconscious mind picks everything up like a sponge. And therefore they are planting these thoughts into the subconscious, which then filter down into the conscious, and we think we're having our own thoughts, when actually they're implanted thoughts done at a subliminal level.
Your living room is the factory. The product being manufactured is you.
New World Order. Billions of people on planet Earth are living in ignorance. Before your very eyes, politicians are advancing a global plan. New World Order is about the centralization of power. It's about silencing any public criticism of the system. It's about commercializing and selling everything as a product. It's about closing down government-owned schools and hospitals, turning them into apartments, and then letting private companies make profits from teaching your children or selling you drugs. The secret societies and political organizations running the New World Order use various symbols and numbers. Once you learn their secret language, you too will have the all-seeing eye.
Announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this New World Order.
It first started in 1967 when I found out that I had not gotten the big picture, even though I thought that I had it together. I just didn't have the complete pieces of the picture. This is a giant geo-psychopolitical picture, and things are happening with the use of subliminal, indirect, and reverse psychological propaganda. It's made to be confusing by the evilarchy that controls not only the United States but Britain. This Illuminati, this group who call themselves the Enlightened Ones, had gained positions of power through control of the banking system.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
On the back of the dollar bill, you'll see the symbol on the left-hand side of the bill, which is Annuit Coeptus, which means our enterprise is now a success, or our enterprise is crowned with success. Annuit Coeptus. So you're saying, fine, so you have an enterprise and it's now crowned with success. What enterprise are you talking about? Novas ordo seclorum. Novas is novus, meaning new. Ordo is order, and seclorum is where we get the word secular, meaning the world. So it's new order of the world, the New World Order. George Bush's New World Order is now a success. 1934 is when the Federal Reserve actually finally took total control of the United States monetary system, and that's when they said it is now a success, because this is a symbol, this is an emblem of a secret society of Freemasons called the Illuminati, the German Bavarian Illuminati. They were a secret society founded in the south of Germany. They were called the Illuminati, the illuminated ones, the enlightened ones. Annuit Coeptus, Novus Ordo Seclorum, and that was in 1774 that the Bavarian Illuminati drew up their plans for what they were going to do in America and how they were going to do it. The triangle at the top with the light emanating from around it is Horus, the god of the ancient Egyptians. Of course, this is an Egyptian pyramid. You don't find pyramids in America, you find them in Egypt. And that pyramid is the symbol of the eye, was in the Egyptian religion Horus, which was the newborn sun. Every morning when the sun came up, his name was Horus. That was the solar divinity in Egypt. Horus was God's son, the light of the world, who is risen. He is our risen Savior, our risen. And so Horus was referred to as God's son, and that's why the light is emanating from around, because it's the sun. The sun is the round eyeball of God. The ancient Egyptians believed the pupil of God was the sun, and he's watching you, and therefore the sun was very bright. And so today we even say someone who is extremely intelligent is brilliant. They're bright, and that's why God is, of course, the most brilliant of all. Therefore the sun is the most brilliant because it's God's eye. All right, anyway, there are 13 layers on the pyramid. And the 1776 at the bottom is 1776. A lot of people think it's because of the country being founded in 1776. It has nothing to do with that. As I said, this is on a document published back in 1774, 75, and then in 1776 the Roman numerals appeared on it in Europe. So what it amounted to is that the 1776 was when this secret society actually formed itself into a secret society and put itself into operation. They were the basis for what we call today in our country the Bavarian Illuminati was the basis for what we call today the Colombian faction. The Colombian faction of the Illuminati came here right after this government was formed, And that's where we get today Columbia Space Shuttle, Columbia Movies, Columbia Television, Columbia Records, everything, Columbia University. As a matter of fact, Columbia TV, Columbia Broadcasting System, CBS. What is the symbol for CBS? It's the all-seeing eye. And that's why our government is in the District of Columbia, because these guys own our government. They print our money, and they own not only the government, but they own you. You are their property. So, in other words, these guys print the money, they run the country, and they own you, and they own everything around it. And so they make the laws, and that's why they can decide who can kill who, and who can get away with who, and who can get away with whatever, because they make the laws and they decide, all right? As I said to you before, there are 13 layers in this pyramid. There are 13 letters in Coeptus, but 13 is a very important number to this secret society. There are 13 stripes, there are 13 stars here, which make up the Star of David. The 13 berries, there are 13 leaves, 13 arrows. There are 32 feathers here and 33 feathers there. Everything is done in sequence of 13. 13, of course, is based on, this is what we call Masonic symbolism. Freemasons designed this dollar bill. Everything is done in sequence of 13, and again, I draw your attention to the fact that you have 13 stars here, which collectively make up the Star of David. There's a reason why.
Let's do it. 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 Let's do it.
I was an FBI agent for 27 and a half years. At the time of my retirement, I was the senior special agent in charge of the FBI Los Angeles Division. I have been qualified in the courts as an expert on cults and satanic ritual abuse. I have information from various sources that judges, law enforcement, prosecutors, attorneys, doctors, and many, many prominent individuals, including actors, actresses, professional football and baseball players, are involved in these type activities. If you go back 225 or 30 years ago, you have what we call the Illuminati that was established in 1776. And the goals of the Illuminati, this is all very well documented, are to take over the world. One of the best ways of taking over the world is to control people's minds and to take over a country through the control of the minds. So what's happening in America, and based on my research and my interviews with numerous individuals, is that the powers that be, the higher-ups, the people in the Illuminati, are using the satanic cults as a means and as a tool to condition individuals and to make them victims of the mind control, MK Ultra mind control program. There's probably close to 4 million practicing Satanists in the United States alone, based on my intelligence information.
We're talking about occultic forces. We're talking about the five-pointed pentagram, which was used by satanic worshippers for thousands of years. If you take the 5 points off of a five-pointed star or a pentagram, you have left in the middle a pentagon. The pentagon is directed toward the North Star because, according to the ancient Babylonians, that's where you gathered power from the gods of the North in war.
We cannot allow our sons and daughters to be sent to die in a bankster's war. For oil, for heroin, for cocaine, for gold, or for control. there has never been a battle that has been won defensively. But we must prepare by becoming self-sufficient. We must prepare to do that which has not been done before. Once identifying the enemy, they have to be routed out.
I destroy kings. I ally myself with foreign tyrants. I set demons onto men. I inspire men of God to commit wicked sins, evil heresies and lawless deeds. I inspire men to commit murder and declare war upon each other. I will destroy the world.
After the heresies of the Knights Templar were exposed, the Templars went underground and reformed themselves into World International Freemasonry. One of the secret passwords used in Freemasonry is Beelzebul. Picatrix is one of the oldest grimoires and has only recently been translated into English. The Picatrix originates from Arabia. It is one of the primary sources of information about the spirits of planets, otherwise known as angels, and how to contact demons and devils. The Picatrix was translated into Latin in 1256 and studied by King Alfonso. The king eventually bequeathed a third of his kingdoms to the Knights Templar in exchange for bringing to him the Picatrix and other magical grimoires. It was the Picatrix and other magical grimoires which inspired the Knights Templar to launch expeditions and excavate the site of King Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem. This quest became romanticized by Geoffrey of Monmouth in his medieval writings, which codenamed the collection of ancient magical teachings as the Holy Grail. The Picatrix was banned for many centuries because it not only shows you how to summon the spirit of a planet, but then goes on to show you how to implant this spirit into the head of a dead person, which is then animated using further magical spells. The head can then be questioned to give answers. Thus, the spirit of a planet can be summoned to speak through the head of a corpse. The Picatrix contains a recipe which includes the severed head of a freshly dead young man. This head would be placed in a glass vessel and pickled using a large quantity of human blood and several ounces of opium. The vessel would then be sealed and placed underground and prayers recited to conjure a spirit to take up residence in the head of the corpse. These magically infused heads were prized possessions amongst the magicians employed by the royal elite of the Middle Ages. These heads became known as Baphomets. Often the head would be placed in ornate silver caskets, rather like religious relics, and questioned during elaborate magical ceremonies. During the heresy trials of the Knights Templar, initiates confessed that Baphomet heads were used to divine information at Templar strongholds in Paris, London, and in the south of France. The magical rites of the Templars inspired many future secret societies, many of which sought to harness the power of demons for political and financial gain. The Picatrix inspired further magical texts such as the Testament of Solomon, a sophisticated book of demonology which describes how to summon Beelzebul, who is a demonic prince of hell.
I've resigned. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered. My life is my own. My life is my own.
What do you want?
My life is my own.
Information. We want information. What do you want?
That would be telling. Information.
You won't get it. I am not a number. I am a free man. I am a free man. Free man.
This evil archy does exist, and that the eye on the pyramid is the eye not only of Horus but the eye of Lucifer. And if you take a look at the symbology in London, you take a look at the Illuminati Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, you take a look at structures all over the world, they have told us what they are doing. They have identified themselves. We are identifying the enemy. We have identified the enemy.
Is Yarbulon. Yarbulon has been described by Christian minister Canon Brian Brindley as an unholy compound of the Hebrew name of God, Jehovah, with the heathen names for Baal and Osiris. The highest ranks of Freemasonry utter Yarbulon as the one sacred and mysterious name of God. Yarbulon is a tripantheon Masonic god, in part deified as the historical Baal, which the Oxford English Dictionary confirms as being a Hebrew word. Baal is the chief male deity of the Phoenician and Canaanite nations. To the tribes of the Old Testament, Baal was the devil himself. Albert Pike is America's most celebrated Freemason. Pike was Grand Commander Sovereign Pontiff of Scottish Rite Freemasonry in the southern and western United States from 1859 to 1891. Scottish Rite Freemasonry has its own headquarters at the 33rd degree in Edinburgh. The United Grand Lodge of England has tried to deny that the true god of Masonry is Yarbulon, or has anything to do with the devil. But Albert Pike describes Yarbulon as a symbol of the infinite and eternal Godhead, a mongrel word whose name has been for 2,000 years an appellation of the devil. On the 14th of July 1889, Albert Pike issued these instructions to 23 Scottish Rite Supreme Councils throughout the world. We worship a God, but it is the God that one adores without superstition. To you, Sovereign Grand Inspectors General, we say this, that you may repeat it to the brethren of the 30th, 31st, and 32nd degrees. The Masonic religion should be the Luciferian doctrine. Lucifer is God. The true and pure philosophical religion is the belief in Lucifer. So, Yarbulon is really an alternative name for the devil. The last syllable, on, is a code name for the ancient Egyptian god Osiris, who was the god of the dead. There can be no doubt that the Scottish Rite form of Freemasonry in America and Britain is controlled by high-ranking 33rd degree Masons who worship Satan or Lucifer as their god.
The British royal family recently suffered intense embarrassment when it was revealed that the father of the Duchess of Kent was an SS officer. To be a member of Hitler's SS, families had to be pure Aryan, with their German ancestry clearly traceable to the Teutonic Knights of medieval Germany. Like most of the British royal family, the Duchess of Kent is descended from German blood. Her German ancestors have throughout history been members of the Illuminati secret society network. The British royal family's name is not Windsor. Their real family name is actually Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. In his book, The Forgotten Monarchy of Scotland, His Royal Highness Prince Michael of Albany publishes ancient heraldic documents which expose the true lineage of the British royals. Ancient heraldic documents suggest that the British royal family's lineage comes from ancient Hebrew or Jewish tribes of the Old Testament. During the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, she referred to England as Israel or Jerusalem.
According to the Masonic reference works that you can get in any library, the Freemasonic Orders of Europe said that there was a little ideologue, a little spiritual entity that gave the knowledge to what the Masons call our hidden masters. That's what Freemasonry refers to those who lead world Freemasonry. They don't know who they are. No Freemason knows who the actual leaders of the world organization are. They call them our hidden masters. Well, according to the reference works, there is a little spiritual entity that guides the world Freemasonry, and they call him Yoda. And in the reference works, you'll see this little creature with the pointed ears, and he's called Yota. Yota goes back to Judah, or Judah, which goes back into British Israel World Freemasonry, going back to the time of of the founding of England, and that's why they're today called British. The British, it's a very big difference between being English and British. Brit is Hebrew for contract or covenant, and ish means man in Hebrew.
During the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, her personal spy, Mr. John Dee, was responsible for establishing the British Secret Service. John Dee was a magician and member of an alchemical secret order. He is thought to be the author of the ancient Voynich manuscript, which is now owned by Yale University, and is kept under lock and key just a few yards away from the headquarters of the Skull and Bones Secret Society. The Duchess of Kent might be ashamed of her father having been a member of the SS, but she might equally be keen to play down the fact that her husband, the Duke of Kent, is Britain's most senior royal Freemason. The Duke and Duchess of Kent live at Kensington Palace, which is home to the Royal Alpha Masonic Lodge. The Royal Alpha Lodge was established by the Duke of Sussex after he became Grand Master of United Grand Lodge in 1813. One of its most eminent members was the physician in ordinary to Queen Victoria, Sir William Gull, who Stephen Knight claims was responsible, along with several other eminent Freemasons, for the Jack the Ripper murders in Victorian London. Suitably, members of the Royal Alpha Lodge at Kensington Palace are called Princes of the Blood Royal. Secret societies across the planet proudly claim to have geniuses such as Mozart and kings amongst their membership. But none of these secret societies allow their members to speak of the rituals which go on behind closed doors in palaces and government buildings around the world. The satanic rituals of Freemasonry have been practiced by several kings of England, but all those questioned sweep Freemasonry's darkest satanic secrets under a very plush carpet.
It's no secret that the aristocracy throughout the ages have been involved in black magic, and I actually cover these subjects of the royal elite.
Are we being ruled by politicians who consult with Baphomets and demons?
Yes, we are. The way the world is structured is like a compartmentalized pyramid, and it's pyramids within pyramids, like Russian dolls, one doll inside a bigger doll inside a bigger doll. So you'll have a compartmentalized pyramid that is the British government, for instance, where the people at the bottom don't know what the top is really going towards, what the agenda really is. Just as in in a bank, you've got a bank, and the people at the bottom of the bank who take the checks over the counter, they don't know what's going on above them, and they don't know what's going on above them. And eventually, in all these pyramids, you have a tiny little number of people at the top that are actually the only people that know how the whole game fits together. Everyone else is just playing their part in ignorance. And so what the Illuminati do is they make sure that only their people, or those that are not a problem to them, will reach those levels of power in which decisions have to be made to push this agenda forward. When people say sometimes, well, you see these people everywhere, you see these one and these one other, hold on a second. No, they're at these high positions of power. Therefore, because of this process of filtering them out, if you're not one of us, mate, you ain't going to get sponsored by the right people to get these positions of power. And if you slip through the net, there's going to be a scandal, or there's going to be something we're going to bring up that's going to bring you down, because you're not one of our guys. And so therefore, the ratio of people who are into these dark satanic rituals, etc., to positions of real power in the world are very, very high compared with the general population, where it's nothing like as high, of course.
Sir William Crookes was a highly respected physicist in the Victorian era. Crookes not only attended dark mirror rituals at the Golden Dawn, but was also a leading member of the Society for Psychical Research. Sir William Crookes had invented several devices which could measure the existence of tiny elementary particles, such as electrons. Sir William Crookes believed that spirits in the ether were capable of moving small primary particles such as electrons and protons. William Crookes developed the cathode ray tube, the most important element to a modern television, firing billions of electrons at a glass screen covered in phosphorus. These pioneering experiments produced amorphous, fuzzy speckles on a glass screen. By staring at the cathode ray tube image, Crookes realized that spirits might somehow be invoked to arrange these particles into an image of the spirit world. Crookes experimented with the cathode ray tube and placed a Maltese cross inside it and bombarded it with streams of electrons. The Maltese cross is an ancient emblem used by magicians, Kabbalists, royal Satanists, Nazis, and the infamous American Phi Beta Kappa secret society. Crookes managed to project a shadowy image at the other end of the cathode ray tube, which was the first ever electrically created image known to man. In his memoirs, Sir William Crookes said that it might be possible for spirits to influence streams of tiny particles. Sir William Crookes would go on to become president of the Society for Psychical Research, and inspired Sir Oliver Lodge's research into the ether and the spirit world. The Crookes version of the cathode ray tube would become the most fundamental component in the development of television devised 40 years later by the Scotsman John Logie Baird. Television, an invention which would eventually enslave and hypnotize the entire world, was inspired in part by research into the spirit world. In 1905, Charles Richet was conducting experiments into the mysterious substance known as ectoplasm. Witnesses at seances
often saw ectoplasm float in space, taking the form of hands. These ghostly ectoplasmic hands would then float about the room, picking up small objects such as thimbles and placing them on the hands of sitters during seances. Writing in 1921, British scientist Sir Oliver Lodge, the pioneer of radio, commented on the research into ectoplasm conducted by Baron von Schrenck-Notzing, who had taken extensive amounts of photographs of ectoplasm seeping through the clothes of a medium called Eva C. According to Oliver Lodge, ectoplasm sometimes took on a semi-luminous appearance and was able to form an almost perfect three-dimensional replica of a full-bodied living person. Ectoplasmic hands were seen clutching the legs, arms, and hands of sitters, just as William Crookes had witnessed and photographed during his seances with British medium Florence Cook. Incredible as it sounds, wax impressions were taken of these ectoplasmic hands, which show real fingerprints. This phenomenon was witnessed by John Logie Baird, the Scotsman who took William Crookes's cathode ray tube and combined it with the pioneering research of Sir Oliver Lodge. John Logie Baird used ultra-high frequency or UHF waves to transmit invisible sound and pictures through the air at a frequency so high some said it would affect the spirits who lived in the ether. In the mid-1920s, John Logie Baird also invented noctovision, which was a form of television which could record images in total darkness using infrared rays. In 1926, Sir Oliver Lodge and his daughter visited Baird's laboratory and was extremely impressed by this new invention. John Logie Baird's noctovision would lead him to become involved with experiments into the spirit world. One day in 1927, a professor from a Scottish university visited Baird's laboratory and asked if it was possible to use noctovision equipment to record ectoplasm and spirits at a seance. According to John Logie Baird's own memoirs published by the Royal Television Society, Baird immediately agreed to take part in a seance, which was conducted by a medium called Marjorie. This would not be the end of John Logie Baird's extensive involvement in the spirit world. Not long after this incident, the ghost of none other than Thomas Alva Edison, the inventor of the audio phonograph, contacted Baird at a seance. The spirit of Edison tapped out a message in Morse code and told Baird that his noctovision system would enable the living to speak with the dead. According to documents and memoirs held in the archives of the Edison Company of the United States, American genius Thomas Alva Edison, who invented the electric light bulb, the phonograph record player, and the movie cine camera, designed a machine in the 1920s which could be used to communicate with the spirits of dead people. Unfortunately, Thomas Edison passed away before his invention was complete. Several years later, at a séance attended by John Logie Baird in London, the spirit of Thomas Edison tapped out a message using Morse code. This eerie experience was recorded in John Logie Baird's autobiography, published by the Royal Television Society. The message from the spirit of the dead Thomas Edison told John Logie Baird that Edison was working on his own version of Noctovision, the infrared television system which could record images in the dark. The spirit of Edison told Baird that he had assembled a team of scientists in the spirit world.
Your mind goes into the same brainwave state as you do in an hypnotic trance. And what happens when you're in a hypnotic trance with a hypnotist? He implants subliminal, subconscious messages which implant a false reality. Oh, no, the audience is laughing, but what they're laughing at, this is an apple. I can taste it. It's a potato. No, it's an apple. The implanted belief is it's an apple. So that's what you are getting. Now, symbolically, that's what's happened to the world. The human population is eating a potato thinking it's an apple. Because they've been told from birth to death, it's a frickin' apple. It ain't.
I like what Chodoin-san said earlier about Japanese TV. And of course that applies to the media everywhere. It's designed specifically to dumb everyone down, just to laugh at whatever nonsense and not think for themselves.
And so is the education system. It's been designed to compartmentalize your brain. Everybody in the high-level education system is trained to think inside a box, not outside of that box. A specific category of knowledge and thinking. They don't want people to know what's really going on.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Just one last thing, and this is a little bit different. It concerns the secret of the Illuminati. And the only other time I've been on video was with Benjamin, and what I said was that the great secret the Illuminati are keeping is that the Abrahamic God is in fact Satan, which is of course absolutely true. But we have known this for thousands of years, ever since the ancient Gnostics, that the God of the Jews, the Christians and the Muslims is none other than the devil. The secret for the purpose of being controlled by the old world order.
古い世界体制がその人たちを支配するためにそういう一神教を操っていると。
However, the real secret for 14,000 years that the Illuminati have kept protected is evidence which incontrovertibly proves the existence of a technologically advanced pre-flood civilization. I'm talking about Atlantis. They were on par with our own technology, and this has been totally erased from our history. And why has this happened? Well, obviously, so they can insert this devil, and in that way brainwash and control the human race, which they have done exceedingly well. But we have preserved these secrets, and we have the evidence, and we will present the evidence which proves the existence of Atlantis.
Throughout the ages, the ruling elite have known that man is not alone in the universe.
There are many things that we are taught to believe that are wrong. One of those is genetics. Occam's razor would require that if the evidence shows it is almost impossible for humans to have naturally evolved, and if there is evidence of genetic manipulation, then humans probably are the products of genetic manipulation rather than evolution. And yet science still refuses to undertake a serious investigation of this simple and logical answer. Instead, they have invented a new convoluted explanation to try to make sense of it all, the genetic bottleneck theory. The logical answer is that humans didn't actually evolve on Earth. They were genetically created to live here, and our genes prove it.
You can suppress the information that people receive in terms of what is possible. You, to the same rate, suppress their perception of what is possible. Okay, now once you have accepted that what we're told is possible is how it is, then you're living in a box that big. So anyone that starts to talk about things that are beyond that perception of possibility, you immediately dismiss them as crazy. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. A few centuries ago, when people said the Earth was a sphere, they were perceived as crazy and dangerous. And one of the reasons was that if you lived on the bottom of a ball, you would fall off.
Você quer ir para a ilha?
Respira!
Fui escolhido. A ilha aguarda você.
Todos, tirem suas máscaras.
Mas o que é isso?
Desculpem, mas eu quero ver seus
Não
rostos.
importa o que ele diz. É tecido humano. Lacrem o fígado agora.
Chequem tudo.
Órgão para transplante. Parece que temos um bom produto. Mandem para a base. Você quer ir para a ilha.
O organismo humano é único em todo o universo em sua complexidade. O produto de 3 bilhões de anos de evolução, perfeito sob todos os aspectos, menos um. Como todas as máquinas, ele se desgasta. Há séculos, a regeneração do corpo humano é a meta principal da ciência moderna.
Temos que transformar esse dia ruim num bom dia, um ótimo dia, um dia incrível, vendendo, vender, vender, vender. Você começa e eu termino.
Bem-vindos à nova geração da ciência. O agnato. Um organismo engendrado já no estágio adulto, com a idade do cliente. Esse está no primeiro estágio de desenvolvimento. Em 12 meses, estará pronto para a coleta de órgãos e para engravidar. Seu dono terá pulmões novos, pele nova, tudo geneticamente indistinguível de seus próprios órgãos. E em conformidade com as leis de eugenia de 2015. Todos os nossos agnatos são mantidos em permanente estado vegetativo. Nunca ficam conscientes. Nunca pensam. Nem sofrem, nem sentem dor, alegria, amor ou ódio. É um produto, senhoras e senhores, sob todos os aspectos. Cavaleiros, existe, porém, outro assunto que requer a aprovação da diretoria. A destruição de 200 milhões de dólares em produtos infectados. Todos a favor? Sim, sim, sim. Você foi escolhido. Você é especial. Muito especial.
It was kind of interesting, you know, in the early 1990s when the top of my head blew off and I kind of was staggering around trying to make sense of what was happening to me, because suddenly I was seeing the world in a very different way, and I was seeing myself in a very different way. Some people call it a spiritual awakening. Notice spiritual awakening, not religious awakening. I'm going to have some t-shirts done, you know, God save us from religion. It's kind of funny, you know, you talk about spirituality, people think you're talking about religion. Often it's the opposite, not always, but often. And religion for me is, in many cases, the opposite of spirituality. In my definition of religion, religion is the greatest form of mind control yet invented, and at its most extreme, psychological fascism. The manipulation of fear and guilt to control. Spirituality is the opposite of that. It is setting the spirit free, celebrating our uniqueness, because we're all aspects of the same whole, but we're all unique aspects of the same whole. And crucially, respecting everyone else's right to express their uniqueness, free from imposition of someone else's belief system, someone else's version of right and wrong, moral and immoral. All this is crucial to how a few control the world. Because we have become, yes, in many cases, terrorized into denying what we are unique. And once we do that, we become a herd mentality. And it is the herd mentality that is the vehicle for the manipulation of the world by a very few people.
The chief advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, Sir John Dee, he was a Kabbalistic black magician. He had gone to the continent and learned from the top Jewish Kabbalists black magic, and he was the chief advisor in the British Empire, and he created Enochian magic and the Enochian language, which the Illuminati, which are hiding behind the Jehovah's Witness headquarters, they use Enochian rituals. Sir John Dee conjured up demons or angels, okay, with his black magic. The beings that he conjured up, there were pictures drawn of them, and they looked identical to what we call gray aliens, okay, and tell you something. And then I visit with debriefing people that came out of high levels of the Illuminati, and these different types of aliens are participating in Illuminati rituals.
And when you're talking about entities that shapeshift, that appear and disappear, UFOs that appear and disappear, if you program the population to believe that this world is all there is, that this is a solid world of solid individual objects, then the idea of things appearing and disappearing or shape-shifting from one state to another, to that sense of perception, is totally ludicrous. But once you introduce the suppressed knowledge, which is that this world is not solid, and what we're living in is basically symbolically a radio station, in terms of all the radio and television stations broadcasting to this place now are all existing in the space that I'm sitting in. I can't see them. They are not aware of each other unless they're really close on the dial, because they're on different frequencies. And if I'm on or something else is on a different frequency, a seriously different frequency to that wall, then I can walk through it, or something else can walk through it. Just as if I turn my radio on now, I tune into a radio frequency broadcast that's coming through this wall or this window. And so this reality that we think is so solid and all that there is actually like a radio station. And this physical body, this holographic illusion, locks us in, tunes us in like a radio to this radio station, to this reality. When I said publicly in 1991 that the Earth was a living entity that we could communicate with and could communicate with us, people just dubbed me crazy. And now we're seeing scientists who have studied this coming to the same conclusion.
Yes.
The bottom line is this: everything is conscious. What we call creation is like an ocean of infinite energy, which is manifesting itself in different forms. It's like we may perceive ourselves as droplets, if you like, individuals. But if you put a droplet in the ocean, where does the droplet end and the ocean start? The ocean is the droplet is the ocean, and it's the same with us. You may look as you do, I may look as I do, that wall may look as it does, but they're all expressions of the same energy field, manifesting in different ways. So of course the planet itself is a living, thinking, emotional entity. And we are interacting with that energy field. And one of the things the Illuminati have set out to do, and are trying ever more to do in the period we're experiencing now, is to bring the vibrational state of the Earth's field, the Earth's consciousness, to as low a point as they can. Because we, as human beings, are living in that energy field. And it's very simple. If you affect the sea, you affect that which lives in the sea. And so the more that they can lower the vibrational state of the planet, the more it becomes, if you like, treacle-like density. The more we living in that energy field are pulled into that state. When you have the wars and the environmental destruction and all these things that cause tremendous negative emotional energy, then you are lowering the vibrational state of the planet, you're lowering the vibrational state of the people, and you're basically holding them in a vibrational prison, which makes it much more difficult, not impossible, but much more difficult for them to hold connection out into the infinite beyond, where they can be in this world, but not of it in terms of their perspective of reality. If you disconnect people and hold them in this density, hold them in this illusory reality, they are in this world and they are also of it. And therefore, the only information that they have to get a fix on how they see life themselves and reality in general is through the eyes and the ears. And who controls that? The Illuminati control that through what we laughingly call the education system, the mainstream media across the planet. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to disconnect us from multidimensional infinity so that we don't see the world from that perspective, and therefore see through the illusion and see through the nonsense and see through the lies. And then once they've disconnected people, they then program this lower level of our consciousness with a reality that suits them. And this is why people who have had a different perspective on life, a different perspective on reality, who have held that connection to some extent out into the infinite, and have expressed that view, expressed that vision of reality and possibility here, they're the ones that are dubbed crazy, lunatics, and dangerous. Why? Not because they are, but because from the point of consciousness that they are perceiving this world, to people who are here, the vast majority, that is just crazy. I mean, if you said to people, is that table solid? They say, of course it is. Well, it isn't. It can't be. It's made of atoms, right? And atoms are not solid. Tell me how it does that. Our minds do that by turning vibrational fields into apparently physical objects. The denser the vibration, the slower the vibration, the more dense that we decode that into what appears to be a physical object. And so someone who's out there and can perceive that sees the world in a completely different way, and because it's different to the norm and the mass norm, which is programmed into people from cradle to grave, they're just isolated and called crazy, when in fact they're the people we need to listen to.
Yeah. Holographic principle tells us something very surprising. It says that our ideas of volume, and in a sense, the world, might be a kind of illusion.
First of all, I would say it should be clear that this whole holographic story is the most radical thing that has happened to our understanding of space, time, matter, since the invention of quantum mechanics and relativity.
Quantum theory in general, and the results of the experiments that have been run in this area, reinforce the holographic principle. Is there any test that we could do to scientifically prove that the universe is a virtual construct and not materialist in nature? Well, you may think that scientists would have run out of ways to do the double slit experiment. But you'd be wrong. The delayed choice quantum eraser experiment was first performed in 1999 by Marlon Scully, Yoon Ho Kim, and collaborators. Dr. Kim was consulted to ensure the accuracy of this presentation. The light chooses to display itself as particles or waves is dependent on how much we know about it. If it had to come from just one slit, clump pattern. If it might have come from either slit, interference pattern. There is no materialist explanation for this. Can the particle predict the future? Or is space-time a virtual construct with all time frames available simultaneously at the source of the simulation? Modern physics has definitely decided for Plato. The smallest units of matter are, in fact, not physical objects in the ordinary sense of the word. They are potential forms. In Plato's sense, abstract ideas which can only be described in the language of mathematics. Space and time are ideas as well, not absolute properties of nature. Science has decided. Materialism is not a valid worldview. Most physicists now accept that particles do not exist as objects in the absence of observation, but exist only as waves, which then form into particles when observed. These waves aren't anything tangible like ocean waves or even radio waves, but simply a probabilistic description of where the particles might be if they were checked on.
Particles are probability distributions, not little hard things. But when you measure them, like measure which slit they go through, you get a particle.
The wave that forms into a particle is only a wave of potentiality. This is what Werner Heisenberg said many years ago. When you look, they appear. When you're not looking, they don't necessarily exist. This situation seems very odd until you compare it to what you see in a computer simulation. A video game gives you the frame that you need when you're looking there. When you navigate around and look at something else, it creates and gives you that frame. Oddly enough, the universe behaves the same way. Our world really does seem to be pixelated, and it only assumes definite form when observed. The very same way computer simulations behave. This is why the simulation hypothesis is now taken seriously by an increasing number of experts.
I personally find that I gravitate more towards the information theoretic point of view and believing that the universe that I exist in is a very good, high-quality simulation.
The idea that you can prevent the downfall of materialism by claiming that the macro world is separate from the quantum world simply doesn't work. Reality is all emerging from the same source. So, is the quantum realm different?
No, no different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
Okay, fine. So the science says that we may really be living in a simulation. But what does that mean? Am I being kept alive in one of those scary pod things from the Matrix? Is my brain sitting in a jar somewhere with wires hooked up to it? Is someone else in control of my thoughts, feelings, and dreams? Why is all of this so mysterious and difficult to understand? Wouldn't a creator want me to know what's going on? Is the creator afraid to expose their true intentions? Is he hiding from us? Why? Why won't he reveal himself?
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
Over an 80-year lifespan, we watch 15 and a half years of television on average. 15 and a half years of having our brains liquefied and sodomized, zombified, and then glorifying products and nonsense. And that screws with us, because advertisements are assholes.
Do you feel that this sort of poor educational system actually benefits the establishment?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Keep them stupid, keep them easily entertained. If they're uninformed, they can't fight back.
This is how a few can actually control the mass, because you can't do it with tanks in the streets and soldiers at the door. There's too many people. It's like trying to physically herd sheep together. You can't do it. You'd need a man, maybe more than one, for every sheep to do it physically. You have to do it through the mind, either through fear or through conditioning people to think the way you want them to think. So these hundreds of sheep were rounded up by one fella flicking his eyelids every now and again, and a sheepdog dispensing fear. And that's how it's done in human terms also. It's amazing the extent to which we have given our power away, our spiritual power. It's all about taking our power back. Because once we do that, it's all over. The great pyramid of manipulation becomes impossible. But when we give it away, we're a doddle to manipulate.
If you think about it, whenever you hear news broadcasters speak, you realize that their speech pattern is similar to the pattern speech of a hypnotist. The news broadcaster looks directly into the camera and into the eyes of the viewer, another hypnotic technique.
Terror experts are working around the clock to head off any new attempt to attack America, and they're concerned that in the not-so-distant future, terrorists could easily blend in with the U.S. population. Bob Orr now on Al-Qaeda's latest tactics.
U.S. officials are increasingly worried that the next attack on America could be carried out by Americans trained in terror.
Report that will be released here in Washington tomorrow. It concludes that homegrown terrorism is on the rise in this country, and one of the most significant contributing factors remains the internet.
But my question for you is this, real quick, Rob. I heard that on the 17th of this month, George passed an executive order that says you can, if you protest the Iraqi war, you can have your assets.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry to cut you off. Balloon Town, Connecticut.
What are you laughing at? This is an apple. I can taste it. It's a potato. No, it's an apple. The implanted belief is it's an apple. So that's what you are getting. Now, symbolically, that's what's happened to the world. The human population is eating a potato thinking it's an apple. Because they've been told from birth to death, it's a frickin' apple. It ain't.
And by the time the Earth hit a population of 8 billion, right before the Third World War, global unemployment reached levels of 65%, every government on Earth was bankrupt to each other, and the core hydrocarbon energy sources saw destabilizing scarcity, a third of the planet still uninhabitable today due to industrial pollution. Today, the global population has fallen by 40% due to scarcity and disease.
Did you know that the first television sets in the 1950s were actually supposed to be used as prosthetic replacement heads to give new hope for those who had been tragically decapitated? But technology, weight, and cord length being what they were at the time, it failed. Luckily, they could play other things besides the faces of the deceased, and TV sets sold nationwide. And it's all true. You know why? Because you heard it from some guy in a tie.